Commander Vexthar stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the small blue planet spin below. His forearms crossed over his armored chest as he studied the data flowing across the screens. This world called Earth looked weak. Its people looked even weaker. Another easy conquest, his second officer said, mandibles clicking with amusement. Vexthar had to agree. In his 300 years of service to the Calreth Empire, he had seen this pattern dozens of times. A young species, barely able to travel between stars thinking they owned their little corner of space. They always learned the truth too late. The Calreth owned the stars. Everyone else just lived in them by permission. The scans showed everything he needed to know. The humans had no natural armor like the Calreth. No claws, no venom, no enhanced strength. They lived barely 100 years while his people lived for centuries. Their weapons were primitive directed energy tools. Nothing compared to Calreth plasma cannons. Their ships were slow and clumsy. How many worlds have we taken? Vexthar asked. 73, Commander, his tactical officer replied with pride. And how many species have resisted past the first battle? None, Commander. Vexthar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The Calreth way was simple and effective. Send the finest warriors. Demonstrate overwhelming power. Accept surrender. Rule fairly but firmly. Most species saw wisdom in submission once they understood the alternative. He ordered his communications officer to prepare the standard message. It had been translated into thousands of languages over the centuries. The words never changed. Surrender your world to the Calreth Empire. You will be protected and guided. Refuse and you will be eliminated. You have 5 rotations of your planet to decide. The message was sent to every human government, every military base, every communication network they could find. Vexthar expected the usual response: panic, desperate attempts to negotiate, frantic preparation for a surrender ceremony. Sometimes a few foolish military leaders would argue for resistance, but cooler heads always prevailed. He decided to wait in orbit. No need to waste time. The humans would see reason. 3 days passed. Vexthar received reports from his scout ships. The humans were not preparing surrender ceremonies. Instead, their military forces were mobilizing. Their civilian populations were being evacuated from cities. Their factories were switching to war production. Curious, Vexthar muttered. They think to resist. On the 5th day, a response finally came. A single transmission from something called the United Earth Defense Force. A young human male appeared on the screen. He wore a military uniform with the rank of captain. His name, according to the translation, was Jake Morrison. The human looked directly at the camera. His face showed no fear, no uncertainty. He spoke clearly and simply. Come and take it. Then the transmission ended. Vexthar stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His officers shifted nervously. In 300 years, no one had ever responded to the Calreth ultimatum with such casual defiance. Most species at least tried to sound diplomatic even when refusing. Interesting, Vexthar said slowly. They have courage. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. He turned to his military advisor, War Master Krelnak. The old warrior carried the blade of conquest, earned through 400 years of successful campaigns. Krelnak had personally defeated the champions of 40 different worlds in single combat. He was a legend among the Calreth, a warrior whose name made enemies surrender before fighting. What do you recommend? Vexthar asked. Krelnak's 4 eyes studied the data about Earth. They are weak, fragile, short-lived. Send the Crimson Talons. 50 warriors should be more than sufficient. We will land, eliminate their military leadership, and accept surrender before their sun sets twice. The Crimson Talons were the elite of the elite. Every warrior had served for at least 2 centuries. Every warrior had conquered at least 5 worlds. They wore armor decorated with the bones of defeated enemies. They carried weapons that had ended thousands of lives. They had never failed a mission. Very well, Vexthar agreed. Select a target that will demonstrate our power. Krelnak chose a human military installation in a desert region. Intelligence showed it housed advanced weapons and training facilities. Destroying it would cripple human military coordination. The location was isolated, far from major cities. The Calreth preferred to avoid unnecessary civilian casualties when possible. It made occupation easier afterward. The Crimson Talons prepared for deployment. Krelnak inspected each warrior personally, though he knew it was unnecessary. These soldiers were perfect. Their armor gleamed. Their weapons hummed with ready power. Their eyes showed the calm confidence of those who had never known defeat. "Remember," Krelnak told them, "these humans are weak but unpredictable. Do not underestimate them simply because they lack our natural advantages. Fight with honor, but fight to win." The warriors struck their chests in salute. They boarded the dropships, eager for another victory to add to their long list. Vexthar watched the deployment from orbit. The dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere, their shields glowing against the friction. They landed in perfect formation around the human base. The doors opened, and 50 of the galaxy's finest warriors emerged into the desert sun. Krelnak was the first to step onto human soil. He planted the Kalreth banner in the sand and waited for the humans to emerge. This was tradition. The defenders would see the banner, understand their situation, and choose between honorable combat or wise surrender. For a moment, nothing happened. The human base appeared quiet, almost deserted. Krelnak's tactical display showed life signs inside the buildings, but no one came out to meet them. Then the explosions began. The ground erupted under 3 warriors, throwing them into the air. Hidden mines, Krelnak realized with shock. Who puts mines around their own base? Weapons fire erupted from concealed positions. Not the wild, panicked shooting of frightened defenders, but precise, controlled bursts from soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. Krelnak saw a human soldier appear on a rooftop, fire a weapon that launched explosives, then disappear before return fire could hit him. He saw another human lead 2 of his warriors into a building, only to have the entire structure collapse on them. He saw humans fighting from positions they could not possibly survive, yet fighting anyway. This was not how battles were supposed to go. Where was the honor? Where was the formation combat? The humans fought like prey animals, using every trick, every trap, every cowardly advantage they could find. But prey animals ran away. These humans were not running. A human soldier, wounded and bleeding, continued firing even as Krelnak's warriors advanced on his position. The human was smiling, actually smiling as if this were somehow enjoyable. For the first time in his long life, Krelnak felt something he did not recognize. His scales prickled. His heart beat faster. If he had been human, he would have called it fear. But Kalreth warriors did not feel fear, they caused it. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it finally ended and the surviving Talons retreated to their dropships, Krelnak counted his losses. 18 warriors dead. 18 of the finest soldiers the Kalreth Empire had ever produced, killed by creatures that should not have been able to challenge even one of them. As the dropships lifted off, Krelnak looked back at the human base. It was damaged but still standing, and on the wall, he saw a human soldier watching them leave. The human raised one hand in a gesture Krelnak did not understand. Later, he would learn it was called a salute. Back on the command ship, Vexthar waited for Krelnak's report. The War Master entered the bridge, his armor scorched and dented. Behind him came the surviving Crimson Talons, all bearing wounds. "Report," Vexthar commanded. Krelnak straightened to his full height. His voice did not waver. "I need more warriors." Vexthar could not believe what he was hearing. The Crimson Talons had fought for 3 centuries without a single defeat. Now Krelnak stood before him, his armor burned and torn, asking for reinforcements. "Explain," Vexthar said, his voice dangerously quiet. Krelnak described the battle in detail. The hidden explosives, the collapsing buildings, the humans who refused to stop fighting even when mortally wounded, the complete absence of traditional military honor. "They fight like cowards," Krelnak said, "but they fight with the ferocity of cornered predators. I have never seen anything like it." Vexthar studied the battle recordings. What he saw disturbed him. The humans moved with purpose and coordination, but their tactics made no sense by Kalreth standards. They sacrificed positions freely only to retake them minutes later. They lured warriors into traps with apparent retreats. They showed no concern for their own safety, only for killing the enemy. One recording showed a human female soldier, identified as Lieutenant Amy Carson, coordinating her platoon's defense. She was smaller than her male counterparts, yet she commanded with absolute confidence. When 3 Kalreth warriors broke through her lines, she did not retreat. Instead, she led them into a narrow corridor and detonated explosives, collapsing the ceiling on all of them. She survived because she wore a helmet. The Kalreth did not. Another recording showed a soldier named Ben Matthews moving alone through the base. He appeared to be fleeing, wounded, and limping. 5 Calreth warriors pursued him, eager for an easy kill. Matthews led them across an open area and then dove behind a barrier. The ground exploded. The entire area had been filled with mines. Matthews had walked through a safe path, knowing the Calreth would follow directly behind him. But the recording that troubled Vexthar most showed a human named Chris Bennett. A Calreth warrior had severed his arm at the shoulder. The wound should have been fatal from blood loss and shock. Instead, Bennett used his remaining hand to keep firing his weapon. He was laughing, not the mad laughter of someone broken by pain, but the genuine amusement of someone enjoying himself. These are not normal prey animals, Vexthar's science officer, Thelmore, observed. I have been studying their homeworld. Commander, Earth is classified as a deathworld. Impossible, Vexthar said. Deathworlds cannot support civilization. The conditions are too harsh. Thelmore brought up data on the main screen. Earth's gravity is 1.5 times standard. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which is highly corrosive to most biological systems. The planet experiences extreme temperature variations. It is home to millions of predator species, including several that actively hunt humans. The dominant diseases on this world have killed billions of humans throughout their history. Vexthar stared at the data. How did intelligence evolve under such conditions? Not just intelligence, Commander. Endurance. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They would chase prey animals for days without stopping until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies can regulate temperature through liquid secretion, allowing them to run in heat that would kill most species. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to others. And their pain tolerance is exceptional. Krelnak nodded slowly. That explains the soldier who kept fighting with one arm. He was not ignoring the pain. He was simply enduring it. How long do we have before the council demands a report? Vexthar asked. 2 weeks, his communications officer replied. Then we have 2 weeks to finish this. Krelnak deploy 3 full battalions, 1,500 warriors, hit 6 different human cities simultaneously. Show them that resistance is futile. Krelnak hesitated. Commander, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. These humans, are you questioning my orders, War Master? Krelnak straightened. No, Commander. I will deploy the battalions immediately. The cities were chosen carefully. Major population centers with military significance. The humans had evacuated most civilians, which was wise. But they had not abandoned the cities. Instead, they had turned them into defensive positions. The Calreth warriors landed in 6 cities across the planet. They advanced in traditional formation, expecting the humans to meet them in open combat. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. Then the humans attacked. They came from everywhere and nowhere. From windows and rooftops, from underground tunnels and sewers. They used their knowledge of the terrain to deadly effect. Every street corner became a kill zone. Every building became a fortress. In one city, a human firefighter named Tyler Chen used his equipment to flood an entire building, then electrified the water when Calreth warriors entered. In another, a teacher named Hannah Ross, who had stayed behind to help with evacuation, used her knowledge of the school building to lead 50 Calreth warriors into the gymnasium. She locked the doors and released the fire suppression system, filling the room with foam that blinded and confused the warriors, while human soldiers picked them off from elevated positions. A construction worker named Ryan Brooks operated a massive crane, dropping steel beams on advancing Calreth formations. He worked the controls with the precision of someone who had spent decades in construction. When warriors finally reached the crane cabin to stop him, they found he had rigged it with explosives. Brooks smiled at them through the reinforced glass, waved, and triggered the detonation. But the worst fighting happened in the ruins. The humans deliberately destroyed buildings to create rubble fields, then fought from the debris. The Calreth, trained for open combat, struggled in the confined spaces. Their size, normally an advantage, became a liability. They could not move quickly through the tight passages. They could not bring their superior strength to bear when they could barely turn around. A human soldier named Kevin Lang held a stairwell alone for 4 hours. His commanding officer ordered him to retreat. He refused. The recording of his final transmission would later become famous among human military forces. Sir, with respect, there are 50 of them, and one of me. If I leave, they advance. If I stay, they have to go through me. I'm good for at least 20 more. Lang out. He killed 37 Calreth warriors before running out of ammunition. Then he used his knife. Then his fists. When he finally fell, wounded beyond recovery, he triggered the demolition charges he had been guarding. The entire building came down, burying him and the remaining Calreth warriors under tons of rubble. In another city, a squad of human soldiers led by Sergeant Lisa Porter found themselves surrounded by 200 Calreth warriors. They retreated to a reinforced bunker designed to survive direct artillery hits. Porter called for fire support, giving coordinates that targeted her own position. "Are you certain?" the artillery commander asked. "Those are your coordinates." "Positive," Porter replied. "We're dug in." "They're not. Send everything you have." The artillery strike lasted 10 minutes. The bunker shook but held. When the smoke cleared and Porter's squad emerged, they found the ground covered with Calreth bodies. Of the 200 warriors who had surrounded them, none survived. Across all 6 cities, the pattern repeated. The Calreth advanced. The humans bled them. Even when Calreth warriors won individual battles, they paid a terrible price. And the humans never stopped. They never surrendered. Even when wounded, even when surrounded, they fought on. One recording captured a conversation between 2 Calreth warriors during the battle. They had cornered a group of human soldiers in a collapsed building. "Why do they not surrender?" one warrior asked. "They cannot win." "I do not think they care," the other replied. "Look at their eyes. They are not fighting to win. They are fighting to make us pay for every step forward. That is madness." Perhaps. But it is effective madness. After 72 hours of continuous fighting, Krelnak ordered a withdrawal. Of the 1,500 warriors deployed, fewer than 200 returned to the ships. The rest were dead or missing. Bexthar received the report in silence. His officers would not meet his eyes. The impossible had happened twice. The Calreth Empire's finest warriors, veterans of 1,000 battles, had been defeated by a species that should not have been able to challenge them. A transmission came from Earth. A human woman appeared on the screen. She wore the uniform of a military captain. Her name was Megan Foster. "Commander Vexthar," she said calmly, "I am authorized to offer you terms. Leave our system now and we will not pursue. Stay and we will destroy every ship you have. You have already lost over 1,000 warriors. How many more will you sacrifice for your pride?" She paused and her expression hardened. "You made one mistake when you came here. You thought we were prey. But humans have been hunting and killing each other for our entire history. We have developed 10,000 ways to end life efficiently. We know every trick, every strategy, every tactic of warfare because we have used them all on ourselves. You gave us something we have never had before. You united us. You gave us a common enemy, and now you are learning what happens when humans stop fighting each other and focus on a single target." The transmission ended. Bexthar sat motionless for a long time. Finally he spoke. "Deploy the fleet, all 20,000 warriors. We will crush them with overwhelming numbers." Krelnak stepped forward. "Commander, perhaps we should—" "Do you question me, War Master?" The human military command center buzzed with activity. Screens displayed data from across the planet. Satellite feeds showed the Calreth fleet in orbit. More ships arriving every hour. Everyone knew what was coming. The aliens were preparing for one massive assault. Colonel Ashley Martinez stood in front of a damaged Calreth weapon, studying it carefully. Around her, a team of engineers and scientists worked with focused intensity. They had 72 hours, maybe less, before the next attack. Every minute counted. "Can we replicate it?" she asked. Dr. Paul Henderson, a physicist who had been pulled from university research 3 weeks ago, nodded slowly. "Their plasma weapons use a containment field we have never seen before. But the principle is simple enough. We can build something similar, though it will not be as elegant." "I do not care about elegant," Martinez said. "I care about functional." "How long?" 48 hours for a prototype. Another week for mass production. You have 24 hours for the prototype. We will worry about mass production later." Henderson did not argue. Nobody argued anymore. The time for debate had ended when the first Calreth warrior set foot on Earth. Now there was only work. In orbit, Captain Brandon Cole walked through the carrier Roosevelt. The ship had been a commercial freight vessel before the war. Now it bristled with weapons salvaged from destroyed Calreth ships. The modifications were crude, held together with welds and hope, but they worked. How many fighters do we have operational? Cole asked his deck chief. 42, sir. We lost 6 in the last engagement. Pilots are exhausted. Cole knew that. He was exhausted too. Everyone was. But exhaustion was a luxury they could not afford. Get them rested. 4 hours sleep minimum. We need them sharp for what is coming. The deck chief hesitated. Sir, the Calreth fleet in orbit numbers over 100 ships. We have 12 vessels that can fight. The odds are bad, Cole finished. They have been bad since this started. But we are still here. So are they. That means we still have a chance. Back on the ground, Lieutenant Nicole Hayes reviewed defensive positions around major cities. She had been promoted 3 times in 3 weeks, not because of politics or favoritism, but because everyone above her had died. Leadership in wartime went to whoever survived and could think clearly under pressure. The Calreth will target our command centers, she told her staff. They want to cut off our head and watch the body die. So we give them what they expect. We set up obvious command bunkers. We fill them with electronics and activity, and when the Calreth concentrate forces to attack them, we hit them from the flanks. That requires sacrificing the soldiers in the bunkers, an officer pointed out. Hayes met his eyes. I know I will be in one of those bunkers. Anyone who has a problem with the plan can speak now. Nobody spoke. They had all seen too much death to worry about a few more. The only question that mattered was whether those deaths would achieve something. Around the world, humans prepared. Factories worked around the clock, converting civilian production to military needs. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Those too old or young to fight contributed in other ways. A retired engineer named Helen Carter designed a new mine that could punch through Calreth armor. A teenager named Scott Palmer used his programming skills to hack Calreth communications, giving human forces advance warning of attacks. The humans were adapting. They had always been good at that. It was how they survived on a planet that should have killed them. When the environment was too harsh, they adapted. When predators hunted them, they adapted. When disease killed millions, they adapted. Adaptation was written into their genetic code. But Vexthar did not understand adaptation. He understood only tradition and overwhelming force. He stood on his command deck, watching the final ships of his armada arrive. 20,000 warriors, 100 combat ships, weapons that could crack planets. It was the largest force the Calreth Empire had assembled in 200 years. They cannot stand against this, he told Krelnak. They have courage, but courage alone does not win wars. Krelnak studied the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses. The humans had moved forces into position around their major cities. Their small fleet had taken up defensive positions in orbit. They were preparing for a siege. They know we are coming, Krelnak said. They have had time to prepare. It does not matter. We have overwhelming superiority. This time there will be no retreat. We will land every warrior, engage on every front, and crush them through sheer numbers. Thelmore, the science officer, brought up a report. Commander, I have been analyzing human military history. There is a pattern you should see. Vexthar waved dismissively. I do not care about their past wars with each other. Those were conflicts between primitives. With respect, Commander, their past wars are exactly why they are dangerous. Humans have been fighting organized warfare for over 5,000 years. They have developed and refined tactics through millions of battles. They have fought in every terrain, every climate, every condition their planet offers. And they have fought against the most dangerous enemy they could face, themselves. Thelmore brought up historical records. Images of human wars flashed across the screen. Trenches filled with bodies, cities reduced to rubble, weapons that killed millions. They have used chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. They have fought wars that killed tens of millions of their own people. And after each war they learned. They adapted. They became better at killing. Commander, we are not fighting a primitive species. We are fighting the graduates of the harshest military academy in the galaxy. 5,000 years of continuous warfare against equally intelligent opponents. Vexthar stared at the images. They did this to themselves. Yes, and they survived. More than survived, they thrived. Their population is over 8 billion. They have covered their entire planet with cities and farms. They have turned a deathworld into a garden. And they did it while fighting each other constantly. Krelnak felt his scales prickle again. That uncomfortable feeling he had experienced in the first battle returned. What are you saying, Thelmore? I am saying that we may have made a terrible mistake. We saw a young species with primitive technology and assumed they were weak. But technology is not strength. The Calreth have conquered through superior equipment and natural advantages. We have never needed to be clever or adaptive because we have always been stronger, but the humans became strong by being clever and adaptive. They had no choice. Their world gave them no advantages, so they created their own. Vexithar turned away from the screen. It changes nothing. We have committed to this course. We will see it through. Yes, Commander, Thelmore said quietly. We will see it through. On Earth, final preparations were complete. Hayes stood in her command bunker, knowing it would likely be her tomb. Around her, soldiers checked weapons and reviewed plans. They were scared. Only fools felt no fear before battle. But they were ready. A message came through from Captain Foster, who was coordinating the defense of another city. All units report ready. We have done everything we can. Now we see if it is enough. Hayes smiled grimly. It will have to be. There is no backup plan. We win here or we do not win at all. In orbit, Cole gathered his pilots. They were young, most of them. A few months ago, they had been flying civilian transports or training in simulators. Now they were the last line of defense between Earth and invasion. I will not lie to you, Cole told them. The odds are terrible. We are outnumbered 10-1. Our ships are weaker. Our weapons are less powerful. By every logical calculation, we should lose. He paused, looking at each pilot in turn. But logic has not been winning this war. Courage has. Determination has. The refusal to quit has. The Calreth keep expecting us to surrender, to accept defeat. They cannot understand why we keep fighting when we should lose, so we are going to teach them something. We are going to show them that humans do not calculate odds before deciding to fight. We fight because it is the right thing to do. We fight because this is our home. We fight because every breath of defiance is worth more than a lifetime of submission. A pilot named Lauren Pierce raised her hand. She was 19 years old and had destroyed 3 Calreth fighters in her first engagement. Sir, what happens if we run out of ammunition? Cole smiled. Then you ram them. You use your ship as a weapon. You make them pay for every inch of space they take. You make them remember that they made a mistake coming here. The pilots nodded. No fear showed in their eyes now. Only determination. Martinez finished checking the new weapons. They worked. Not perfectly, but they worked. Human plasma rifles built from salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity. They would not win the war alone, but they would help even the odds. She distributed them to frontline units with simple instructions. Point at the enemy. Pull the trigger. Do not stop until they stop moving. As night fell on Earth, both sides prepared for the final confrontation. The Calreth fleet moved into assault formation. Dropships loaded with warriors. Weapons charged, shields activated. On the ground, humans waited in their positions, not with hope of victory, but with certainty of purpose. They would fight. They would make the enemy pay. And whatever happened, the Calreth would never forget what it cost to attack Earth. Vexthar gave the order. Begin the assault. All forces engage. The sky above Earth burned with fire. Calreth ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, their shields glowing red from friction. Human anti-aircraft batteries opened fire, filling the air with explosions. Some alien ships fell, trailing smoke and debris, but most made it through. In orbit, the battle was chaos. Captain Cole stood on the bridge of the Roosevelt, watching 12 human ships face over 100 Calreth vessels. The odds were impossible, but impossible had become normal over the past weeks. All fighters launch, Cole ordered. Hit their capital ships. Focus on weapon systems and engines. Make them think about defense instead of offense. 42 human fighters screamed out of the Roosevelt's launch bays. They were small, fast, and piloted by men and women who had already accepted death. That acceptance made them dangerous. A person who expects to die has nothing to lose. Lieutenant Lauren Pierce led her squadron straight at a Calreth destroyer. The massive ship launched interceptor fire, filling space with deadly energy. 2 human fighters exploded. 3 more took damage. But Lauren kept flying. She dodged, weaved, and closed the distance. Target their bridge, she told her squadron. Maximum payload. They fired every missile they carried. The Calreth destroyer's shields flared, absorbing most of the damage. But shields had limits. Under concentrated fire, they began to fail. Missiles punched through, slamming into the destroyer's command section. The great ship shuddered and began to list. Not destroyed, but crippled, unable to coordinate its weapons effectively. Scratch one, Lauren said calmly, already searching for the next target. but the Calreth fleet was too large. For every ship damaged, 5 more remained functional, and now they were targeting the Roosevelt. "Incoming fire," the tactical officer shouted. "Brace for impact." Plasma bolts hammered the Roosevelt's shields. The ship shook violently. Lights flickered. Systems failed and backup systems engaged. "Shields at 40%, someone reported. "We cannot take much more." Cole studied the tactical display. The Calreth flagship was closing, its weapons charging for a killing blow. In minutes, the Roosevelt would be destroyed. And without the Roosevelt, the human fleet would collapse. He made a decision that he knew would be his last. "Evacuate the ship. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods now." "Sir?" his executive officer said in shock. "That is an order. You have 5 minutes, go." The officer understood. He saluted and ran to coordinate the evacuation. Cole stayed on the bridge with a skeleton crew. Volunteers who understood what was about to happen and chose to stay anyway. "Set a collision course for the flagship," Cole ordered, "and charge the reactor. I want maximum overload." The crew worked in silence. There were no dramatic speeches, no tearful goodbyes. Just professionals doing their job one last time. On the ground, the battle was even more brutal. Calreth dropships landed in 6 major cities simultaneously. Warriors poured out by the thousands, expecting to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. They found prepared killing zones. Lieutenant Hayes watched from her command bunker as the first wave of Calreth warriors advanced, down a wide street toward her position. The street appeared clear, an obvious route to the human command center. 200 warriors moved in formation, weapons ready. Hayes waited. Patience was crucial. Let them commit fully. Let them believe they were winning. When the entire formation was in the kill zone, she gave the order. Fire everything. Buildings on both sides of the street erupted with gunfire. Human soldiers in concealed positions opened up with every weapon they had. The new plasma rifles, reverse-engineered from Calreth technology, tore through alien armor. Rockets streaked across the street, exploding in the packed formation. Machine guns fired streams of armor-piercing rounds. The Calreth warriors had expected resistance. They had not expected this level of coordinated firepower. The front ranks fell immediately. The middle ranks tried to return fire, but they could not see their attackers in the smoke and chaos. The rear ranks attempted to retreat and found their path blocked by mines that exploded, sealing them in the kill zone. In 3 minutes, 200 of the galaxy's finest warriors were dead. But there were thousands more, and they were learning. Krelnak coordinated the assault on the largest human city. He had been a warrior for 400 years. He had seen every kind of battle, every kind of enemy, but never anything like this. The humans fought with no regard for conventional tactics. They would defend a position fiercely, then abandon it suddenly, only to retake it hours later. They used their own infrastructure as weapons, collapsing buildings, flooding tunnels, cutting power to create darkness, then attacking with night vision equipment. A squad of Calreth warriors entered a subway station pursuing human soldiers. They found themselves in a maze of tunnels. The humans knew every passage, every exit. They led the Calreth warriors deeper, then detonated explosives that collapsed tunnels behind them. The warriors were trapped underground with enemies who could see in the dark and knew exactly where they were going. None of those warriors emerged. Krelnak tried every strategy he knew. Overwhelming force at single points. The humans concentrated their defense and bled him. Spreading his forces wide, the humans picked off isolated units. Conventional advances, the humans ambushed them. Unpredictable attacks, the humans adapted within minutes. A message came from one of his unit commanders. "War Master, we have secured the western sector. Requesting orders. Hold position. Prepare for an explosion," cut off his words. The western sector erupted in fire. The humans had rigged the entire area with explosives and simply waited for the Calreth to occupy it before detonating everything. "Status," Krelnak demanded. 300 warriors, gone, all of them. Krelnak felt his scales prickle again, that feeling he had learned to recognize. Not quite fear, but close. The humans were not just fighting to resist. They were fighting to win, and they were paying any price necessary to do it. In the ruins of Washington, Sergeant Matt Turner led a squad through debris-filled streets. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight. Ammunition was running low. Casualties were high. But they were still moving, still fighting. A Calreth warrior appeared around a corner, weapons raised. Turner fired first, his plasma rifle punching through alien armor. The warrior fell, but 3 more came behind it. Turner's squad scattered, taking cover in the ruins. They fought with the efficiency of soldiers who had trained together, who trusted each other completely. One would fire to draw attention while another flanked. They moved like parts of a single organism, coordinated without needing words. But there were too many Calreth. Turner's squad was being pushed back step by step. Then Krelnak himself appeared. The War Master was massive, over 9 feet tall, his 4 arms carrying weapons that had ended countless lives. The Blade of Conquest hung at his side, a symbol of 400 years of victories. Turner's squad fired at him. The plasma bolt struck Krelnak's personal shields, which absorbed the energy. The War Master advanced steadily, not hurrying, confident in his superiority. "Fall back," Turner ordered his squad. "I will delay him." "Sir, that is suicide," one soldier protested. "That is an order. Go." The squad retreated. They would live to fight again. Turner would make sure of it. He faced Krelnak alone. A human sergeant barely 6 feet tall and exhausted from hours of combat, against a legendary warrior who had defeated champions from 40 worlds. "You cannot win," Krelnak said, his translator making his voice understandable. "You are brave, but bravery is not enough." Turner checked his weapon. Almost empty. He drew his combat knife. It looked like a toy compared to the Blade of Conquest. "You are right," Turner said. "I probably cannot win, but I can make you pay. And every second you spend fighting me is a second you are not killing my people. So come on, let us see how tough you really are." Krelnak respected courage even in enemies. This human knew he would die, yet he did not flee. There was honor in that. The fight lasted 10 minutes. To Krelnak it felt like hours. Turner was outmatched in every way. Smaller, weaker, slower, but he was trained by a lifetime on a deathworld and hardened by weeks of continuous combat. He knew how to read an opponent, how to use their size against them, how to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. Krelnak landed blows that should have been fatal. Turner took them and kept moving. The human bled from a dozen wounds but did not slow down. He was running on adrenaline, painkillers from his medical kit, and sheer determination. Turner could not match Krelnak's strength, so he did not try. Instead, he targeted joints, weak points in the armor, sensitive areas. He fought dirty by Calreth standards, striking eyes, crushing sensory organs, using debris as weapons. Krelnak had fought champions who were stronger, faster, better armed. But he had never fought anyone this persistent. Every time he thought the human was finished, Turner found new reserves of strength. Finally, Turner saw his opening. Krelnak raised one arm to strike. Turner dove forward inside the War Master's reach and drove his knife into an unarmored joint. Then he emptied his pistol into the same spot at point-blank range. Krelnak stumbled. Not dead, but wounded seriously for the first time in decades. Turner collapsed, unable to stand. His body had nothing left to give. Krelnak looked down at the human. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you fight when you cannot win?" The battle for Earth lasted 3 more days. 3 days of brutal, continuous fighting. 3 days where humans refused to surrender and Calreth warriors learned the true meaning of persistence. Without their flagship, and without Krelnak, the Calreth assault lost coordination. Individual units fought well, but they were no longer part of a unified strategy. The humans exploited every gap, every mistake, every moment of confusion. Lieutenant Hayes led a counterattack through the streets of her city. Her command bunker had been destroyed in the fighting, but she survived. She always survived. Around her, soldiers who had been defending positions for days now pushed forward. Reclaiming territory block by block, they found pockets of Calreth warriors, cut off from their command structure and surrounded. Some fought to the death as their honor demanded. Others, seeing the situation was hopeless, surrendered. This shocked the humans. For weeks they had believed the Calreth would never yield. But without leadership, without hope of victory, even the proud warriors chose survival. Hayes accepted their surrender but kept them under heavy guard. Trust had to be earned, and the Calreth had not earned it yet. In other cities, the pattern repeated. Human forces, exhausted but determined, pushed the invaders back to their landing zones. Calreth dropships tried to evacuate survivors, but human fighters harassed them constantly. Many ships never made it back to orbit. The remaining Calreth fleet faced its own disaster. Without the flagship, command fell to various ship captains who could not agree on strategy. Some wanted to continue the fight, Others wanted to retreat. While they argued, human forces regrouped. Colonel Martinez had been working around the clock studying captured Calreth technology. She found something interesting. The alien ships used a communication system that was sophisticated but followed predictable patterns. With help from Scott Palmer, the teenage programmer, she developed a virus that could disrupt their coordination. "Upload it to every Calreth ship frequency we can reach," Martinez ordered. The virus spread through the Calreth fleet like a plague. Ships lost communication with each other. Targeting systems failed. Navigation computers gave false readings. The fleet, already demoralized by the loss of their flagship, fell into chaos. Human ships, battered but functional, pressed the attack. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking damaged vessels and fleeing before the Calreth could respond effectively. It was not honorable combat by Calreth standards, but as humans had been teaching them for weeks, honor meant nothing if you were dead. One by one, Calreth ships were destroyed or disabled. Some captains chose to retreat to the edge of the star system, away from Earth's defense fleet. Others tried to fight and were destroyed. A few attempted to land their remaining warriors on Earth's surface, only to find every landing zone covered by human artillery. After 72 hours of continuous combat, the Calreth fleet was broken. Of the 100 ships that began the assault, 15 remained combat-capable. Of the 20,000 warriors deployed, fewer than 3,000 survived. Commander Vexthar sat in his emergency command center, transferred there after the flagship's destruction. He stared at casualty reports, unable to comprehend them. The Calreth Empire had lost more warriors in 1 month on Earth than in the previous century of conquests. "We should retreat," his surviving officers urged. "We can return to the Empire, report what happened, and request a larger force." But Vexithar knew the truth. There would be no larger force. The Council of War Chiefs would not commit more resources to a conquest that had already failed so spectacularly. They would ask how one commander lost an entire fleet to a primitive species. There would be questions he could not answer. His pride had destroyed everything. He had ignored warnings. He had underestimated the enemy. He had sent warriors to die for his ego. A transmission request came through, a human signal. Vexthar almost ignored it, but curiosity made him accept. Admiral Nicole Hayes appeared on the screen. She wore a torn, dirty uniform. Her face showed exhaustion and old blood, but her eyes were clear and hard. "Commander Vexthar," she said, "I am authorized to offer terms." "I do not surrender," Vexthar said automatically. "I am not asking you to surrender. I am telling you what will happen. You have 3 options. First, you can continue fighting. We will destroy every ship you have, kill every warrior you brought here, and you will die having accomplished nothing." She paused, letting that sink in. "Second, you can retreat to the edge of our star system. Repair your ships. We will not attack you while you withdraw. Take your survivors and leave. Return to your empire and tell them what happened here." "And the third option?" Vexthar asked. "You can try to return and claim victory. Lie to your council. Tell them you conquered Earth. We will then follow you home and tell them the truth. In front of your entire civilization, we will show recordings of your warriors being defeated. We will show your flagship being destroyed. We will prove that you failed." Vexthar's scales prickled. "Why not just kill us all? You have the advantage now." Hayes leaned forward slightly. "Because we are not you. We do not conquer for pride. We do not kill for glory. We fought because you threatened our home. Now that threat is ending. We would prefer peace, Commander. But if you force us to continue this war, we will. And we will win. Not because we are stronger or better equipped, but because we refuse to quit." The transmission ended. Vexthar sat in silence for a long time. His officers waited for orders. Finally he spoke. "Prepare to withdraw. All ships to the system's edge. We are leaving. Commander, the Council will..." "Will what? Send another fleet to die? No, we made a mistake coming here. I made a mistake. The humans are not prey. They are predators who spent their entire evolution learning to survive against impossible odds. We gave them one more impossible situation and they survived again. We will not give them another chance." The Calreth fleet retreated. Human ships escorted them to the edge of the system, making sure they actually left. It took 2 weeks for the damaged alien vessels to limp away at sublight speeds. Then they jumped to faster-than-light travel and were gone. Earth began to count its costs. Over 2 million soldiers dead. Countless civilians. 6 major cities heavily damaged. Infrastructure destroyed across multiple continents. The economic impact would take decades to recover from, but they had won. Against overwhelming odds, with inferior technology and numbers, humanity had defeated the Calreth Empire's finest warriors. 6 months later, the Calreth Empire's Council of War Chiefs gathered. They waited for Vexthar's triumphant return, expecting to celebrate another conquest. Instead, they received a transmission from Earth. Admiral Hayes appeared before them. The council chambers fell silent. Behind Hayes stood rows of human soldiers. On the walls hung captured Calreth banners. "Honorable Council," Hayes said, using their formal title. "I am Admiral Nicole Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. 6 months ago, Commander Vexithar brought a fleet of 100 ships and 20,000 warriors to my world. He offered us a choice: surrender or die." She paused and her expression hardened. "We chose neither. We fought and we won. Of the warriors you sent, none returned home. Of the ships you sent, none survived intact. Your flagship is debris. Your war master is dead. Your invasion failed completely." Murmurs ran through the council. This was impossible. "The Calreth did not lose," Hayes continued. "I am not here to threaten you. I am here to establish terms. Leave humanity alone. Leave our star system alone. Do not return with thoughts of conquest or revenge. In exchange, we will not pursue this conflict further. We will not attack your worlds. We seek only peace and fair diplomatic relations." She gestured, and the view behind her changed. It showed human ships, dozens of them, sleek and armed with weapons reverse-engineered from Calreth technology. "But if you return, if you threaten us again, we will not wait for you to reach Earth. We will bring the fight to your worlds, and you have seen what happens when humans fight on their own ground. Imagine what happens when we fight on yours." A holographic display appeared showing 3 Calreth star systems. "These locations are 12 light-years from Earth. Our ships reached them last week. We did not attack. We simply wanted you to know that we can reach you. We can reach any world in your empire within months. We learned faster than light travel 15 years ago. You have been using it for centuries. Yet in 6 months we have learned to build ships as good as yours. In another 6 months they will be better." Hayes's expression softened slightly. "We do not want war, Honorable Council. We have fought enough. We have lost enough. But we will never submit. We will never surrender, and we will never stop fighting if you force us to fight. Choose peace. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The council sat in stunned silence. Finally, the eldest member spoke. "Did she speak truth? Did we really lose an entire fleet?" A junior officer provided confirmation. Communications from Vexthar's fleet had ceased. Scout ships sent to investigate found debris fields and no survivors. The human claims were accurate. "Then we withdraw," the eldest member decided. "Establish a border. No Calreth ship crosses into human space. And send a message to all our subordinate species. Tell them about the humans. Tell them what happens when you underestimate an enemy." The decision was unanimous. The Calreth Empire, which had never retreated from a